voice modulation, gesture usage, pausing, energy. So don't lose that from this session. Take that, take the parts that you can use professionally, and now let's apply it to motivating others to action. You'll get a chance to have some precious situation response. Now I have here all of your wimpy, soft, pussycat questions you wrote for yourselves, which I have managed to whip into shape and make them something a little bit more terrifying than what you wrote down, right? So we'll get a chance to deal with those a little bit later. And then finally, to get people to embrace change. And this is the sort of longest presentation you'll do. It's the sort of graduation part of the whole course. It brings it all together for you. We'll do that one last this afternoon. You get quite a bit of time to prepare for that one because it's quite a big one. But this next one, motivating others to action, we actually we'll go through those. That, done all that. Here we go. So what we're trying to do here is to present information to an audience and then ask them to do something about it. Okay? It's not an informed, here's some information that's nice to have presentation. You actually want them to do something. Take your advice, follow your suggestion, whatever it might be you want them to do. You have got a call to action built into the design of this. But to do that, we need to have some good, strong evidence that is convincing for your audience that, well, I should believe you. Yes. Now, if you want to sell people, you have to have some motivation about the idea yourself. That's where all this energy you pumped up this morning, you can apply in the motivational part to convince people. If you start rambling and they can't follow the structure, you've lost them. So it's still got to be concise, very clear. So this is really packaging up a key idea very, very, very carefully to have maximum impact. And then use that energy this morning, that conviction, in your delivery, so that people really believe, you believe, this is the best thing for them, so they will follow. It's going to be a 3-minute presentation. 3-minute presentation. It has a structure. We have, again, to break through the clutter. If you are one of a number of speakers, and you're number 5 or something, there's been 4 people before you, very hard to get your audience involved because they're tired. And if everyone's talking in a monotone, putting them to sleep, it's going to make your job even harder. So you're open. Or if you're a speaker after lunch, that's a tough gig too because people are tired. So you've got to have a really good opening to grab their attention. Now, this is a bit counterintuitive because we put up the evidence first, then we do the close. The close is made up of an action benefit statement. And 90% of the time is in the evidence part. It's called the magic formula. And only the last part is the call to action and then the benefit of that call to action. So it's a bit counterintuitive in a way. We're going to design it the other way around though. We're going to design it by thinking about your call to action. What do you want people to do first? What's the benefit if they take our advice? And then think of the example or the evidence you're going to use. So that's how we're going to plan it. Okay? But when we deliver it the other way. We give the evidence first, action, call, then the benefit. So why is this a bit different? We are normally trained in business, meetings and whatever, to put up our conclusion first. You're trained to put up your recommendation first. The problem with that is there's no context. There's no evidence. So it reminds me of, I think it's quail. Is it quail they go shooting for in England? You see out on the moors of Scotland going shooting, and they've got the shotguns, and they break open the shotgun, they put in the shotgun pellets, they snap it shut, and they get the dogs to get the quail to fly, and they're going bang, bang, like this, shooting the birds out of the air. That's what it reminds me of when you put up your conclusion first. Everyone else sitting in the room mentally are opening up the shotgun, putting in the pellets, closing the shotgun, and shooting your idea full of holes. Because they've got nothing to go on except your bare conclusion. So what we found and what Dale Carnegie's found is that doesn't work very well. So reverse it. You start with the evidence. And the way we do that is we tell a story. It doesn't be a long, rambling story, but we start with an incident or a story, which is really the context behind why you think this is important. There's something in your call to action driving that based on your experience. So you reach into that experience and think about, well, why do I believe that's a good thing? And then you tell a story. Preferably tell a story that everyone in the audience can relate to. So you use people's names, you use places or locations that they're familiar with, so they get into the story with you. Now we are all, as I said yesterday, very partial to storytelling. We've grown up with it as children. Again, it shouldn't be too long, but you've got to get into the example quickly, lots of colour, lots of familiarity for people, and in that is lots of context, a lot of evidence. Now, you can disagree with my conclusion based on my evidence. Here's the evidence, I conclude this. You can hear the same evidence and say, well, no, from that evidence, I conclude that. Yes, you can do that. But you cannot argue with my context. You cannot argue with it, because it's my context. You can argue with my conclusion, but you can't argue with the context. So you've got nothing to disagree with. You've got a bunch of people standing around with their shotguns ready, and they can't do anything because they've got nothing to shoot at. There's no argument they can argue with. Then, when you give them the context, bang, you hit them with the call to action. Now it has relevancy. Now they have to say, well, I either accept your conclusion based on the evidence, or I have to come up with a different conclusion and argue with you. But this is usually so compelling, so logical, they can't. Then you tell them what you want them to do very briefly, and then you give them the benefit. So that, again, the last thing they hear is the benefit of doing what you propose. So it's a very tight form. This is only going to be a 3-minute presentation. It's not very long. But that's enough to make a couple of key points, or one key point, with enough evidence. But the key is to get into the storytelling straight away, to get the audience in, and take them on the context journey, hit them with the action call, hit them with the benefit statement, and stop it right there. So it's got to be very structured. But also delivery, okay, has to be done in a way with all that energy and modulation and pausing and gestures that you did earlier. So we come to the planning. As I said, we start with the call to action. You plan it. This is in your textbooks, your manuals on page, what is it, page, let's see, the planning sheet here on page 45. So when you do the planning, start with the action. Third down there, it says suggested action to take. Start there. With your planning, start there. What is the call to action? What do I want my audience to do? Start there. Then, if they do that, what's the benefit to them? So then you go to the last part there, what's the benefit? So start with the action, tell them what the benefit is. Having done that, then go back and think how you're going to open it and what the story will be that you're going to tell. Everyone got the idea? Any questions? We all good? Yes, Bruce.
Is this tied into the homework assignment, the three
No,
possibilities?
that comes a bit later. That's a bit more detailed and complicated. That comes a bit later.
We should do
This is a very simple, more simple structure, I should say. Any other questions? It's all good. So, think about the thing you want people to do. What it is might be, agree to fund this project. It might be agree to a change in procedures. It might be a new venture. It might be buy my product. It might be whatever it might be. Buy my service. Invest in this fund. Support this new initiative. Whatever it might be. What do you want them to do? Get that first. If they do it, great. What's in it for them? Then think about how you can tell the story to get them to that point. Okay. We get a chance to rehearse as well, so you get a chance to get the other people hear it and see how it sounds. Give you an example of how you might tell the story. This is again, everything comes from real life. None of this is made up. So you might start like this. Let's turn this off. I was in the boardroom with the CEO of this very large multinational company. The CEO was so frustrated with his Japanese team members. He said to me, "Greg, I just don't get it. Our Japanese team, they're really smart people. They do a fantastic job, they're great. But I can't seem to get them to step up. We have senior people from our organization fly in. They come to meetings here. We have these big meetings. The Japanese team are in the room. They don't say anything. You hear a pin drop. It's only the foreigners who are engaging with the visitors, asking the questions, debating the point. The VIP visitors get back on the plane, they go home, and you know what? They write Japan off. Now, I've heard that conversation so many times. Oh, we have our Japanese team members in the teleconference meeting, and we're hooked up matrix organisation all around the world, and yet the Japanese team members don't speak. But when you get them outside and you speak to them, their English is great. Actually, they got better grammar knowledge than I've got and good vocabulary, but they won't speak and they don't perform at the level they should do in the business. So this was a conversation that I heard over and over and over again. So I came back to our headquarters here, and I'm conferring with a director of training, Ishihara-san, who's actually just come back from doing this session in Hong Kong for a Japanese community group there. And he said, well, maybe we can create a course, because nothing in Dale Carnegie exists for this. We said, well, look, we've got this great trainer, Gary Smith, and maybe we can work with him and come up with a course. What do we call it? Why don't we call it Confident English, and why don't we aim it at that Japanese community who've got good English, got good vocabulary, grammar's fine, but who won't speak. And let's take parts of the high impact presentations training and combine it together, and then we go. So I got the team together and said, look, I think we should do a new thing called Confident English, and if we bring out this new course, Confident English, we can actually help a lot of Japanese companies or foreign companies, Japanese staff, be more effective. And we did. So you see, I'm going into the story. I was in the CEO's boardroom. I had this conversation many times. I had Ishihara-san involved. I had Gary involved. And then at the end, the recommendation was, let's create this course from nothing, and if we do, we'll solve a lot of people's problems. So, context first. Now, you were with me in that story. You weren't thinking to yourself, where's this guy going with this? What does this mean? You were in that story with me, because I was populating with Gary's in the story. I'm talking about Ishihara, who's the director of training. I'm talking about the CEO meeting, the CEO frustration. You've seen all that. You can imagine that meeting in your mind. So I've got you into the story. And that's how you want to start. Straight into the story. It's straight into the action. Get us in. Take us along, and then at the end, call to action, benefit. Okay? So now work on your story. Now your story, you're not going to write it out. But think about how you would get straight into it. Very rich in detail, very rich in people and use names. Doesn't matter if we don't know who they are. But you say, well, it was Bill, and I was talking to Suzuki-san, and blah, blah. It doesn't matter, we don't know who they are. But you put the names in there, it's going to be real for us. All right, good? So try and get your context ready with your evidence of why this is good. your call to action is a good idea, and then let's hear it.
What's the difference between the opening and the call to action? The opening is the same.
The opening in this case is going to be straight in. I suggest go straight into the evidence. Make the opening the context. So the opening's got to be something startling. I was so frustrated. I keep hearing the same complaints from the CEOs of all these major organisations. That's my opening. I was so frustrated. That's it. One sentence. Now I've got your attention. Oh, what was so frustrating? What was the problem? I want to hear more. You see? So you pick one line to start off with that's powerful, and straight into your context. So we want evidence, context first, action, benefit. The close is the benefit. All good? You okay on that, Howard? Well, you get a chance to practice part of this, so you get a chance to try it, see how it goes. Sometimes it's good to move around, sometimes you don't need to move around. But just be careful you're not moving around because you're nervous. That you start doing the stuff because you're trying to relax yourself, and then it just becomes very distracting for the audience. When you have a single message you want to get out, refine your movement so you're not diffusing the message or weakening the message, and concentrate on the audience and get them to concentrate on you. Because when you start jumping around a bit, people start to get a bit lost. They're not looking at, well, they're looking at your movement. They're not listening to what you're saying. They're losing. What did you see that was different this time from yesterday?
Looked more confident.
Yes.
Speaking it, so that made me less painful to watch myself.
That's always a good thing, right? Less pain is a good thing. Yeah. And you had a lot more command in this session too. When you stood up here and you talked about we should flex out, 7 to 9. I'm like you, I'm an early starter. I'm 7:30 in the morning. I love that 7:30 to 9. No one around, it's quiet. I get truckloads done. I understand that why the trains aren't crowded. There's a whole bunch of things happening there. But you had a lot of authority when you suggested that. It came from a real experience, and you backed it up with belief. We were buying your belief. How particular aren't I about these things? I'm very particular. I don't, like I noticed, Okusan, you did the 3 like this. I wouldn't recommend doing the 3 like that. It's not as easy to see as that. See that? Not as easy to see as that. So, and people sometimes they want to say, there are 3 things that we should be doing. They're throwing around, your eyes are all over the place trying to catch. Boom! Doesn't move. There are 3 things we need to do. Very easy to see. One thing we need to do. Always at that height that's next to my face, because I want you looking at my face, and if you've got your body language down here around the hips, and you want us looking at the face, you're actually distracting and looking from the face down to our hips, because you're bringing the hand gesture down here. So now if you go down and see the hand gesture, bring the hand gesture up, support the face. This is the zone. I want you looking here. I don't want you noticing where my hands are, because I want you up here. I'm going to bring my gestures up here to keep your attention at this level. Okay. I think you're relaxing more, it seems to me. That's my interpretation. But I think you're getting more into these guys than into Bruce. Yesterday, what's Bruce doing? Bruce has got to remember this, Bruce has got to do that. And today it's now I'm talking to people. I'm talking to my audience. I'm talking to real people and I'm sharing my thoughts with them. So I can see more of the movement is coming out now, out of you to the audience. Keep going with that, because once you lose you, it's almost a Zen sort of thing. We lose you, but we find the audience. We're there. We're there. Okay, now it's hard to smile when you're feeling, you're concentrating, right? Like it's when you're thinking, what am I going to do? And I've got to do this. The camera's on me. Everyone's looking at me. It's very simple, easy for your face to tighten up. Very easy. It'll happen just like that. So we have to really, at the beginning, you might have to tell yourself, smile. At the beginning, but over time you relax. When I would put it together speech notes, across the top, I'd write in big capital letters, smile, 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 smile. Because I'd see myself on video and I'd be very, very passionate and very, very serious and looking really angry, with a face like this all the time. And I started to realise, man, I've got to loosen that face up because I'm holding people away. When I relax my face, I'm inviting people in. You know, and so no matter how technical the subject is, you can have a part, not the whole thing, but a part where you show a little bit of relaxation at a critical point it's in context. It's in context, and you just show something of yourself. It makes you more human. People are more likely to go with you. You're a lot more presence today. Like you got a good strong body. You stand well. But today you had something more coming out of here. It wasn't just a physical presence. It was something coming out. That's something that, like, when juggling is key. You know, like I hit on a key. That key is what we're trying to project to an audience. And the bigger your audience, boy, the bigger your key has got to be. Probably the biggest audience I've spoken to is about 5,000 people. When you get on a stage and it's like, 3 layers going up, and my God, the person in the back, you've got your binoculars, they're so far away. But you go to the back of that venue, and you should go to the back of the venue, always go to the most furthest point. So 3rd floor, at the back, and look at the stage. You look that big from that distance. It's always good to see what you look like at a distance. So when you're at that size and that venue, man, your gestures have got to be really big. You've got to be really projecting a lot of energy to fill that space. You don't have to be yelling, but you've got to come out with a lot of key to fill that auditorium. And in that particular case, I would move. I wouldn't stay in one place. I would move to the left and talk to the people on the left. I would come back to the centre, to the back, and then I'd go off to the right, and I'd talk to the people on the right, and I'd come right to the very edge, as close as I can get, and I'd talk to the people in the centre, because it's a big space, and you've got to fill it. So depending on your venue, I mean, the chance of all of us getting a 5,000 person venue is not going to happen that often. And the thing you really realise is, man, I need to be doing one of these every week, because it's so hard when you do one, and then it's like 3 years later or 5 years later before you do another one. It takes practice. That is a completely different game in a big hall and a big venue. And you think, geez, I wish I was doing this every week. I'd get the hang of this, because it is different. You're sort of trying to work out what you need to do. So unfortunately, that chance doesn't come up that often. Right? You have smaller groups, but that's where trying to fill the room with your presence through your key is a critical factor.